Prananda, good afternoon, conference, and thank you so much, all of you, for taking part in this debate today. Conference, in December, I had the real privilege of attending the UN Biodiversity Conference in Montreal, COP15, ensuring Wales's voice was clearly heard in the calls to agree an ambitious global framework to turn the tide on biodiversity loss before it is too late. The theme of the conference was One Planet, One Chance, and I'm very pleased to say that the coming Montreal Biodiversity Framework was formally adopted after 2 weeks of intensive negotiations. The framework sets out 4 global goals, 23 targets, and finance for the next 8 years to put nature on a path to recovery, alongside an ambitious statutory net zero action here in Wales. This is a significant and truly positive achievement, with agreement from over 200 countries from around the world. But conference, I really do want to impress on you the real pressure that was coming from the 7th Summit for ICLE, as it's called, the Alliance of Subnational Governments, Provinces, Cities and Regions from across the world, of which Wales is a very proud and loud member. There was huge pressure upwards towards the UN member states to get something done, to hurry up, as Mark was saying this morning. And we are the people on the ground, who will actually be implementing the legislation and the protections. We will deliver at pace and keep the pressure on the current appalling UK government and the other UN member states to put their money where their mouth is. Conference, your Welsh Labour government has already adopted the Plan of Action on Subnational Governments, Cities and Other Local Authorities for Biodiversity. This important decision means that the UN formally recognises the vital role we and our local government partners play in driving and delivering action to deliver a nature-positive future for Wales and for our planet. At COP15, I was very proud to pledge to implement the 30 by 30 target, as I shared the approach to our recent Welsh Government biodiversity deep dive and all the recommendations adopted. We also learned from others, like California and Sao Paulo, about the approaches they are taking. And I'm delighted that this collaborative approach will continue post-COP with the creation of a high-ambition 30 by 30 task force for subnational governments, in which Wales will play a very active part. The new Global Biodiversity Framework recognises the role of the whole of society in ensuring we protect biodiversity for the future. Speaking at COP15, I reflected on the importance of the Team Wales approach, our social partnership approach, in driving action across the whole of government and the whole of society, meaning action is required by everyone. This approach is vital to ensuring that our future generations enjoy the same benefits that we have from our environment. So we absolutely recognise the need to take ambitious and integrated action together with our farmers and the whole of Team Wales to deliver these targets and put nature on the path to recovery. It's why Leslie Griffiths, my colleague, has brought forward the Sustainable Farming Scheme, and is why we are supporting the motion from Gala CLP today. Conference, your Welsh Labour government will implement this global agreement by developing our own legally binding nature targets, underpinned by a new strategic biodiversity action plan and our sustainable farming scheme. And this is all being done in the teeth of a viciously retrograde Tory government. So, conference, just imagine what we will be able to achieve with a radical Labour government in Westminster, with Nick and Keir on our side and the whole Labour government team on our side too. Together, we really can show what we're capable of, that we are stronger together and united in our ambitions for our country and for our planet. So, conference, we are putting our nature-positive 30 by 30 targets in place. We are putting our environmental protections in place. We are bringing in our new sustainable farming scheme. We are cooperating with people all over the world on forestry and nature restoration. We are determined to be a global leader in how we get from where we are now to good environmental status for 30% of our land and 30% of our seas by 2030. And all of this alongside our statutory, very ambitious net zero plan too. So, conference, I am really pleased to support the motion today in front of you, and I hope that together we can really make Wales a shining beacon of hope for environmental protection and climate action right across the world. So, conference, turning now to housing. We know people across Wales are facing an unprecedented cost of living crisis, fueled by soaring energy, fuel and food costs. But conference, let's be really clear, this is a Tory-made crisis. From a decade of austerity to cruel cuts to benefits, rising mortgage bills and broken promises on taxes, the Tories have created the conditions for this crisis and are adding to the pressures on household budgets. Your Welsh Labour Government absolutely recognises this pressure. We know rents sought for new lets and rents in particular area of Wales are increasing at a much faster rate than the reported average. And we know that the Tory government have cruelly frozen the local housing allowance at the very worst possible time in a financial crisis entirely of their making. So Conference, your Labour government are absolutely committed to helping tenants, supporting them to remain in their homes. We've provided an additional £6 million this financial year to local authorities for discretionary homelessness prevention and relief measures. The funding can include payment of rent arrears, providing rent guarantees or assistance with household bills. Because preventing homelessness remains an absolute priority in Wales. Underpinning this is our ambitious target to deliver 20,000 homes for rent in the social sector in this Senedd term. And our commitment continues to be demonstrated in the investments we're making. A record £310 million in social housing this year alone, and recognising the pressures on homelessness services, the homelessness prevention budget will increase by £15 million in 23-24, taking our investment in homelessness and housing support services to over £207 million next year. We're also protecting programmes which put money back in people's pockets, including an extra £18.8 million in the Discretionary Assistance Fund to continue providing emergency financial support. This is in addition to the £380 million already invested in our cost of living support packages since November 2021. And Conference, turning specifically to the private rented sector, last year I launched Leasing Scheme Wales, which commits over £30 million for 5 years to improve access to longer-term affordable housing in the private rented sector, delivering security of tenants and confidence for landlords. The scheme is designed to support the most disadvantaged people and households who are experiencing or are at risk of homelessness. Tenants on the scheme benefit from longer-term security of tenure, between 5 and 20 years, at rents restricted to local housing allowance rates. We've also provided £300,000 of funding for Citizens Advice Cymru to establish the private rented sector debt helpline. During the first year of the scheme, we have helped more than 900 tenants through that advice. But Conference, there is really so much more that can still be done. So we will put in place a robust and long-term solution that will ensure a sustainable rental sector in Wales. To do this, we need to fully understand what the issues are in different parts of the country and what implications various rent control options will have when introduced. This is why your Welsh Labour Government will be publishing a green paper in summer of this year, gathering as many views as possible on potential interventions, followed by a pledged white paper to inform the legislation. This Welsh Labour Government is committed to using all the levers we have to help people in a sustainable manner to remain in their homes and avoid homelessness. We must remember, however, that many of the key levers, powers and the fiscal resources needed to help people with the spiralling cost of household bills do rest with the UK Government, and our calls on them to take the immediate action they need to are sadly being ignored. Conference, I'm sure you will agree that Nick speaking today gives some insight into what can be achieved together with a Labour government in Westminster. So Conference, your Welsh Labour government is committed to raising standards in the private rented sector. We have already passed the Renting Homes Act and its supporting regulations. This means landlords in Wales must ensure homes are in good repair. They must ensure homes are fit for human habitation. And Rent Smart Wales, unique to Wales and your Welsh Labour government, does enforce against landlords who don't do this. Conference, you can hear from what I'm saying that we are hugely sympathetic to the sentiment of the motion from Cardiff North and acknowledge the cost of living crisis faced by households and the housing conditions they face. But I'm afraid we cannot support the motion from Cardiff North in its entirety today, though I'm more than happy to speak to them about it, as we intend to legislate for fair rents and enforcement. And as I've set out today, we need to follow the green and white paper path so that the people of Wales can have their say in our radical proposed legislation. So, Conference, with a heavy heart, I ask you not to support the motion from Cardiff North, but to ask them to continue to work with us to achieve the aims through the green and white paper process that they want and that we also share. Diolch.